The garden party was everything my mother excelled at creating. Perfectly manicured lawns, white linen tablecloths, and a 3-tier cake that probably cost more than our monthly grocery bill. This wasn't just a party for my nephew Oliver's 8th birthday. It was a statement. My mother, Patricia Montgomery, believed in statements. "Stay near the back," she instructed us when we arrived. My husband, Andrew, adjusted his tie and said nothing. He was good at saying nothing. Our 2 children, 7-year-old Sophie and 5-year-old Lucas, stood close together near the garden gate, watching the other children run across the lawn in their expensive party clothes. Sophie wore a dress from a department store. Lucas had on khakis and a polo shirt I'd found on sale. They looked fine, clean, pressed, appropriate. But next to my sister Diane's children in their designer outfits, they looked like they'd wandered in from a different economic bracket, which I suppose was the point my mother wanted to make. "Sarah." Diane swept over in a flowing sundress that probably cost more than my car payment. "You made it. Mother wasn't sure you'd come." "It's Oliver's birthday," I said. "Of course we came. Well, the important guests are already here. The Hendersons, the Whitfields, Judge Morrison and his wife." She glanced at my children. "Your little ones can play in the side yard. The main activities are for the primary guests." Primary guest. At an 8-year-old's birthday party. Andrew's hand found mine. His grip was firm, steady. He'd been listening. My brother Thomas appeared with his wife, Jennifer, and their twin daughters, both 9. They were dressed in matching silk dresses with real pearl necklaces. My mother had bought them, I was certain. She'd never bought my children anything. "Sarah, Andrew," Thomas said with a nod. "Good of you to come support the family." Support. As if we were distant relatives doing them a favor, not immediate family. The party began with games. Elaborate games with expensive prizes. Oliver and the other important children, as my mother had designated them, competed for gift cards, electronics, and designer accessories. My children watched from the side yard, sitting on a stone bench under a tree. I started toward them, but Andrew touched my elbow. "Not yet," he said quietly. "They're isolated." "I know." His voice was calm, but something in his eyes made me pause. "Not yet." Lunch was served on the main lawn. Long tables with place cards. Sophie and Lucas weren't assigned seats. Neither were we. The message was clear. We could eat, but only after the important guests were settled. My mother held court at the head table, surrounded by her social circle. She was in her element, hosting with practiced grace, her silver hair perfectly styled, her cream-colored suit impeccable. "Such a lovely party," Mrs. Henderson gushed. "You always know how to create magic, Patricia." "One does what one can for the grandchildren who matter," my mother said, her voice carrying across the garden. Her eyes flickered toward my children still sitting alone. "Some require more investment than others." Several people laughed, polite, knowing laughs. Sophie's hand found Lucas's. They sat very still. Andrew set down his untouched plate. He picked up his briefcase from where he'd left it by our feet. I'd wondered why he'd brought it to a child's birthday party. Now I was beginning to understand. "Andrew," I whispered. "Watch," he said. My mother stood to give a toast. Everyone quieted, champagne glasses raised. "To my grandson Oliver," she began. "A child who represents the very best of this family. Intelligence, breeding, promise. These are the qualities we celebrate today." She paused, her smile sharp. "These are the qualities that determine a child's worth, that separate the important from the incidental." More laughter. Diane beamed. Thomas raised his glass higher. My mother continued, emboldened by her audience. "I've always believed in investing in excellence, in children who will carry forward the family legacy with distinction. Which is why the Family Trust has been structured to reward achievement, breeding, and social standing." She looked directly at my children. "Birthday parties, you see, are for important children only. The ones who count. The ones who will make something of themselves." Her smile was glacial. "Yours, Sarah, simply don't qualify." The garden went silent except for the string quartet, still playing obliviously. Sophie's face crumpled. Lucas pressed closer to his sister. They held each other, 2 small figures under the tree, trying not to cry in front of 50 people who'd just been told they didn't matter. That's when Andrew stood up. He didn't rush, didn't shout. He simply rose from his seat at the back table, briefcase in hand, and walked toward the main lawn. His footsteps were deliberate, measured. Every eye turned to watch him. "Andrew, please," I started, but he was already moving. He stopped in the center of the lawn, directly in front of my mother's table. Then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. Not a bitter laugh. Not sarcastic. A genuine, almost surprised laugh, as if he'd just heard the punchline to a joke he'd been waiting years to understand. The garden froze. My mother's smile faltered. Andrew opened his briefcase. He pulled out a thick folder of documents and set them on the table in front of my mother. Then he pulled out another folder. And another. Legal documents, financial statements, official letterhead on every page. "Patricia," he said conversationally, as if commenting on the weather, "I think we need to talk about the trust." My mother's face went rigid. "This is hardly the time." "The Montgomery Family Trust," Andrew continued, his voice carrying easily across the now silent garden. "Established by your father in 1987. Current value, approximately $47 million. Gasps rippled through the guests. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. "Andrew, stop this immediately," my mother hissed. "The trust that pays for this house." He gestured to the mansion behind us. "The trust that covers your country club membership, your car, your lifestyle. The trust that paid for this very party." He opened the first folder and held up a document. "The trust you've been telling everyone you control." He paused. "You don't." The color drained from my mother's face. Andrew pulled out another document. "Your father's will, revised in 2015, 3 years before his death. He made several changes, including appointing a new trustee." He looked at her. Me. The champagne glass in my mother's hand trembled. "That's not possible," Diane said, standing up. "Mother's been managing the trust for years." "Your mother has been receiving distributions from the trust," Andrew corrected. "Monthly allowances that I approve. She doesn't manage anything. She just spends what I authorize." He laid out more documents across the table. Bank statements, distribution records, legal authorizations, all bearing his signature. "Your grandfather knew your mother's priorities," Andrew said, looking at Oliver and the other important grandchildren. "He knew she'd play favorites, create hierarchies, use money as a weapon." He glanced back at Sophie and Lucas. "So he changed the trust structure to protect all his grandchildren equally." Thomas had gone pale. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" "Your mother was told. In 2015, when the will was read. She chose not to share that information with the family because it didn't serve her narrative." Andrew pulled out another document. "She's been accepting monthly distributions of $40,000 for 8 years while claiming to control the family fortune." Judge Morrison leaned forward, squinting at the documents. "These appear legitimate. Montgomery Trust letterhead, proper legal seals. They're completely legitimate," Andrew said. "I've been trustee since your father's death, Patricia. Every dollar you've spent I approved. Every party, every vacation, every country club charge." He met her eyes. "Including today's event. The caterers billed the trust account this morning. I authorized the payment." My mother's hands were shaking now. "So when you say birthday parties are for important children only," Andrew continued, his voice still conversational but with steel underneath, "you should understand that this birthday party exists because I decided your grandson was worth celebrating. Just as I decide every other expenditure you make." He pulled out one more document, a long spreadsheet. "Here's an interesting summary. Over the past 8 years, I've authorized $1.6 million in distributions to you, Patricia. Your monthly allowance plus special requests. House maintenance, parties, gifts for the important grandchildren." He looked at Diane and Thomas. "Meanwhile, Sarah has never requested a single distribution. Not once. Despite being entitled to exactly the same monthly allowance you receive, Mother. $20,000 per month, according to the trust terms." I felt my jaw drop. "What?" "You never asked," Andrew said simply. "And I followed your lead. You wanted to be independent, build our own life. So we did." He turned back to my mother. "But that changes today." The garden was silent except for the rustling of leaves in the breeze. "Effective immediately, I'm restructuring the trust distributions. Patricia, your monthly allowance is being reduced to match actual minimum living expenses. The difference will be redirected to Sarah's family and to equal education funds for all grandchildren. No more hierarchy. No more important and unimportant children. My mother finally found her voice. You can't do this. Andrew tapped the documents. I'm the trustee. Your father gave me complete discretion over distributions. I've been generous because Sarah asked me to be. She didn't want family drama. She wanted you to enjoy your retirement. He glanced at Sophie and Lucas, still holding each other under the tree. But that generosity ends when you tell my children they don't count. Andrew, Judge Morrison spoke up. I should mention I reviewed your father-in-law's trust documents as a favor to him before he passed. This young man is correct. The trustee has absolute authority over distributions. My mother sank into her chair. Diane was staring at the documents. All these years, you've been pretending. I wasn't pretending anything, my mother said sharply. I simply allowed you to assume. You told us you controlled everything, Thomas interrupted. You made us compete for your approval. You treated Sarah like... He stopped looking at me, like she was less than us. Andrew gathered his documents back into the briefcase. The trust attorney will contact everyone this week with the new distribution schedule. All grandchildren will receive equal education funds. All of your father's children will receive equal allowances. No exceptions. He turned to face the assembled guests. Many of them looked uncomfortable now, realizing they'd been complicit in humiliating children who, it turned out, came from the wealthiest branch of the family. This party cost approximately $15,000, Andrew said. The trust paid for it as always. But going forward, Patricia, your entertainment budget will be significantly reduced. You'll need to choose your celebrations more carefully, and perhaps more kindly. He closed the briefcase with a decisive click. Then he walked across the lawn to where Sophie and Lucas sat. He knelt down in front of them, eye level with our children. You count, he said firmly. You've always counted. And anyone who says otherwise doesn't understand what actually matters. Sophie wiped her eyes. Are we really rich, Daddy? We're comfortable, Andrew said. But more importantly, we're kind. That's worth more than any trust fund. He stood, taking each child's hand. Come on, let's go get ice cream. Real ice cream, not whatever fancy thing they're serving here. As we walked toward the gate, my mother's voice called out. Sir, wait, please. We need to discuss this. I turned back. She looked smaller somehow. Diminished. The queen of her carefully constructed kingdom, discovering she'd been ruling at someone else's pleasure all along. What you said about my children, I said quietly, that they don't count, that they're not important. I glanced at Andrew, standing strong and steady with our kids. My husband just showed you exactly how wrong you are. And he didn't even raise his voice. We walked out of the garden party, leaving behind the stunned silence, the expensive decorations, and the carefully constructed hierarchy that had just collapsed like the house of cards it always was. In the car, Lucas asked, Can we really get ice cream? Absolutely, Andrew said, starting the engine. Even though we're not important enough for birthday parties? Sophie asked, her voice still small. Andrew looked at her in the rearview mirror. Sophie, you're so important that your great-grandfather literally restructured his entire estate to protect you. You put me in charge specifically to make sure you and your brother would always be treated fairly. That's how important you are. Then why did Grandma say? Because sometimes people who feel powerless try to make others feel small to feel bigger themselves, I said gently. Your grandmother forgot she wasn't actually in control. Today your dad reminded her. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad laughed at her. I did, Andrew admitted, because it was absurd. She was bragging about money that isn't even hers at a party she didn't pay for, while insulting children who are protected by the very trust she thought she controlled. Sometimes the only response to absurdity is laughter. And documents, Lucas added seriously. Andrew smiled. Yes, and documents. We drove to the ice cream shop in town. The same place we always went. No pretense, no hierarchy. Just a family getting dessert on a Saturday afternoon. My phone buzzed repeatedly. Messages from Diane Thomas, my mother. I turned it off. You okay? Andrew asked as we sat outside with our cones. I think so, I said. I never knew about the monthly allowance we could have been taking. You never wanted it, he said simply. You wanted to make our own way. I respected that. $20,000 a month for 8 years. That's almost $2 million. And we're fine without it. Good jobs, good lives, good kids. He watched Sophie and Lucas racing around, laughing now, the party already forgotten. But maybe it's time to accept what your father wanted you to have. I leaned against him. She really thought she controlled everything. She controlled the narrative. That's different from controlling the money. Andrew finished his cone. Your father was smart. He picked an outsider as trustee. Someone who couldn't be manipulated by family politics. Sophie ran up, chocolate smeared on her face. Dad, do we have to go to Grandma's parties anymore? Not unless you want to, Andrew said. Good, she said firmly. Ice cream is better. Lucas nodded in agreement, his vanilla cone dripping. We sat there as the afternoon faded, watching our children be children, free from hierarchies and judgments. Just two kids enjoying ice cream, unaware they'd been at the center of a power shift that would reshape their family for generations. Sometimes the most important children are the ones who don't need to be told they're important. They just need to be loved.